Ghosting. Ghosting is a red flag, and invariably it is the behaviour of a narcissist. The problem with the term is that it has entered mainstream use to describe a behaviour, namely, somebody you're dating or talking to just disappears out of the blue. The problem with it is that whilst it is an apt description for the behaviour, people fail to realise what that behaviour is demonstrative of. By calling it ghosting, it's euphemised because it invariably demonstrates the behaviour of something which is far more problematic. But many people fail to realise this. Oh, the individual has ghosted me, not sure what has happened there. But the person doesn't really realise who they have been dealing with and the possible consequences of that. Somebody who has emotional empathy would not engage in ghosting. If they strike up a conversation with somebody online, they will not just disappear. They will, for instance, foreshadow the fact that they may not be around. I'm about to go on a holiday, so I won't be around for a period of time. I will talk to you in 2 weeks when I get back. Or, if they are dating and they have decided that it isn't working for them, for whatever reason, the person with emotional empathy will explain. They may pull a few punches in order to not hurt the feelings of the other individual. So, for example, they've realised that the person that they're dating is an interminable bore who has no real interests which are similar, but they recognise that they're a nice enough person, but they don't want to date them. So rather than say to them, I don't want to date you anymore because you're an interminable bore and your interest in Beatles isn't really something that excites me, they will just say, you're a lovely person, but I don't want to continue the dating. Thank you so much for the dates we've been on so far, but I'd like to call it an end now. And the other person, on the basis they have emotional empathy, they will be hurt by that. Nobody likes rejection, but they will understand and appreciate. They will not cause a problem for the person who said, I don't want to date you anymore, because their emotional empathy will stop them from doing so. They don't have any need to control the other person. They don't need to gain fuel from them. And therefore the dating ends. So the person who decided that it was not for them doesn't just disappear because their emotional empathy says to them, the polite thing to do is explain that you no longer wish to see this person, and so that is done. You see, most people, if they receive a text message and they have emotional empathy, will respond to it within a period of time. So, for instance, even if you're in a meeting, you feel a buzz in your pocket, you take your phone, you'll send a quick text message under the boardroom table. In a meeting, I'll call you in a couple of hours. Because your emotional empathy, your honesty, your decency, those empathic traits compels you to behave that way. If you've been swimming, so you've not been near your phone, when you get to your phone you see you've got some messages, you will reply, sorry I couldn't get back to you earlier, I've been in the sea. Bar somebody who's in a theatre of war or in a coma, most people are able to respond to a message, to a telephone call, within 24 hours or so. And they will do so on the basis of having emotional empathy. Even if it's just a message to explain that they're not available and they'll get in touch in due course, they will do so. However, who are the people that won't do that? Narcissists. Why? We have no emotional empathy. We have a sense of entitlement. We have no sense of accountability to you. Therefore, if a narcissist is interacting with you, texting back and forth, the narcissist will quite readily stop texting and not feel compelled to then answer your messages. The reason being is that you are compartmentalized. So when you send a text message to the narcissist, you come up on the narcissist radar. And the narcissism basically says, is this person under control? Now, your text message might say, hey, how are you doing? Be lovely to hear from you. That gives the narcissist a little bit of fuel. Also signals to the narcissist that the narcissist has that person under control. So the fundamental question, is this person under control, is yes. Therefore, the narcissism asks, in the unconscious, do we need anything else from this person? Fuel, character traits, or residual benefits? If the answer is no, then the narcissist will not continue the interaction. Because the narcissism says, in essence, this person's under control, we don't need anything more from them, stop, don't waste the resource on them anymore. And indeed, the narcissist will be engaging with somebody else where they are trying to extract control, extract fuel. The narcissist has no concept of remorse or guilt or conscience. We don't feel bad for ignoring you. And in effect, we don't actually see it as ignoring you. It's more a case of, I'll deal with that later, and then you are forgotten about. Because we have no sense of obligation towards you, because we are the controller, not the controlled, because we attach you to us, but we're not attached to you, because we have no emotional empathy for you, because we compartmentalize, this results in this dynamic whereby we could be talking to you back and forth and then we just vanish. And that's because at that particular point in time, essentially our narcissism said, we don't need to deal with this person any longer. Focus elsewhere. And because many narcissists will be engaging with different appliances at any one time, whether they're friends, family, or intimate ones, so that you are just one cog amongst many. And because we are not obligated to you, you don't get an explanation at the time. We just vanish. And that's what ghosting is. But of course, people don't realise that the person they're actually dealing with is highly likely to be a narcissist. Now, there will be some occasions where a non-narcissist might do this. And that's where they are a normal who doesn't feel any emotional empathy for you because you're a stranger. They haven't got to know you properly. And therefore, they just avoid replying. Invariably, however, ghosting is the behaviour of a narcissist. And in order to determine whether somebody is a narcissist, one has to look at a range of behaviours. So one could look at the text exchange, and you could see, for instance, if there's a lot of texting from the narcissist, that shows incessant need to assert control, excessive flattery, perhaps demands for nude pictures, etc. Those are greater indicators. But for the most part, when ghosting occurs, you are involved with a narcissist, but most people don't realise it. They just think it's a phenomenon in itself. Oh, it's just something that arseholes do when dating. Well, you can certainly regard them as arseholes, but actually, it's highly likely that you've just had a brush with a narcissist, because it's us that do it more than anybody else. As I say, you may occasionally get the odd normal that does it, in the same way that you get the occasional normal that's an internet troll, because they don't have emotional empathy for strangers. Their emotional empathy is for a narrower radius of individuals around them. This is where the keyboard warriors come from. But most individuals that ghost are narcissists for the reasons that I've explained in terms of compartmentalization, sense of entitlement, lack of accountability, a lack of emotional empathy, the operation of different appliances within the fuel matrix. So often people talk about, oh, I've been ghosted, but they don't realise what it actually was. And particularly the teens and people in their early 20s utilise this phenomenon in a way that euphemises what is actually a behaviour most often deployed by our kind. And the danger is that you will continue to try and contact that individual, that you will be upset that this person that you thought you were getting along with very well has just disappeared. It may well hurt you. It may upset you considerably. And of course, the person who has been ghosted will invariably be thinking, what happened? Why won't they talk to me anymore? We were getting along so well. What did I do wrong? And that person invariably will be an empath, because a normal who is ghosted would just shrug it off and move on. But the empath, being a truth seeker, and because their addiction to the narcissist is being fed by this interaction with the narcissist, means that the addiction says, we want to still be fed, and therefore we're going to make you keep wondering, thinking about the narcissist, even though you didn't realise that's what you're dealing with. So the addiction corrupts your empathic trait of being a truth seeker to make you keep wondering, where's this person gone? Can I find them somewhere? Perhaps if I do some detective work and find out where they work and contact them. Perhaps something's gone wrong with their phone. Did I do something or say something? And the empath gets caught up in trying to work things out, possibly worrying about it, getting upset, bewildered and confused, suffering all of those adverse experiences, which are entirely unnecessary if they realise what they were dealing with. Namely, this person's a narcissist, therefore this is what narcissists do. Here are the reasons why, as I've explained earlier. The best thing that you can do is block this individual to prevent them coming back at a later juncture, because there's a risk that they will. And the fact that they've ghosted you now, in a way, although it hurts you, is actually advantageous because it gives you an opportunity to understand what has happened without a full-blown ensnarement. Ghosting is in effect a narcissist operating in a shelf manner. You were taken off the shelf, you were interacted with, and then the narcissist disappears, and you're put on the shelf. And the narcissist could come back weeks later, months later, years later, and you're taken off the shelf, interacted with again. There are some recriminations, of course, for how you've been treated, but then you'll go back on the shelf again. And that's the nature of the dynamic with an intimate partner secondary source or a non-intimate secondary source. Typically, ghosting occurs within the dating environment, so it's more likely intimate partner secondary sources who are treated in this shelf manner. But it is important for you to understand that the term ghosting, although accurate for the behaviour, does not go far enough to explain who it is who's actually engaging in the behaviour, what this means, what could happen next, and why it's happening. People fail to understand why ghosting occurs. They see it happen, but they just think, oh, it's a dating phenomenon. It's just where someone engages with you and then they disappear, and that's it. There's more to it. But of course, most commentators in the world of love and dating and these supposed relationship gurus haven't got a clue as to what it actually signifies. And that's why it's important and incumbent upon you, dear listener, to get this knowledge of mine out to other people by sharing this video, by explaining that ghosting is actually far more serious than people realise. It invariably involves a narcissist. It will cause hurt and confusion because your emotional thinking has been spiked by the involvement with the narcissist. It leads to self-flagellation, upset, confusion, bewilderment. It can cause you to engage in behaviours which may be a little bit embarrassing as you relentlessly try and get hold of this person, to try and get answers out of them. Why have you stopped talking to me? What did I do wrong? I can't believe this has gone wrong. Your hopes are built up and then are dashed by this behaviour. And of course, this person, you might think, well, if I can get to talk to them, things can get going again. I just need them to explain so I can then put the matter to rest. I can understand perhaps if they don't want to date anymore, but at least they could have told me why. No, the narcissist invariably won't. Why? Because we do as we want, and this is a way of controlling you. Yes, there are some narcissists that might say to you, I don't want to date you any longer, and give you a reason. But many, because it's far more efficient, and because we don't have any sense of accountability or obligation to you, will just disappear. Accordingly, understand this is what ghosting is. Realise it is a euphemism describing the behaviour of a narcissist, and as such, ensure that other people realise that this common description in dating dynamics reveals something far more serious and important. Spread that information. Thank you for listening.